Disclaimer. This podcast is for FCA authorized financial advisors only and is not for retail clients. The views expressed in this content and all other content on this channel are those of the individual speaking and do not constitute financial advice or a recommendation to invest in any product, asset, or strategy, including those discussed in sponsored segments. This content is for educational purposes only. Always do your own research and consider all relevant risks before making any investment decisions. Today I'm joined by Jeff Booth, who is the author of The Price of Tomorrow. Talk us through your Bitcoin journey.
Probably spent 15,000 hours trying to kill Bitcoin. The Fiat system has a 100% chance of failure, so I knew for sure the existing system would fail.
When you say 100%, you mean the Fiat system that we exist in?
We're the risk of Bitcoin succeeding or failing. Every single failure event of Bitcoin comes down to one thing. Governments are going to stop it. Bad for the environment. Quantum attack. Every single risk comes down to...
Why, in that system, to play this out, why would the prices fall?
An inflationary system is incompatible with the free market.
If you try and redistribute money from anywhere to anywhere, someone has to lose and win in that situation.
The zero-sum game. If you're measuring everything from a fiat instrument that you know is being manipulated, and if you don't know that, you should know that. From that manipulation, what could be real over time?
Happy New Year and welcome back to the Bitcoin IFA podcast. Today I'm joined by Jeff Booth, who is the author of The Price of Tomorrow and the founding partner of Ego Death Capital. Welcome, Jeff.
Thanks, Dan. Nice to be here.
I actually have a bit of a confession to make before we begin, which is I train financial advisors on Bitcoin. It's a sort of between 2 and 3 hour training. I try and compress the 100 hours that you really need to become an expert on Bitcoin. I try and give that to them in 2 to 3 hours, everything they're going to need to know. Within that
can I just pause you just quickly?
Sure.
There is no possible way you could be an expert on Bitcoin in 100 hours.
Very true. Very true. Let's say a rudimentary understanding of Bitcoin within 100 hours. And essentially what I'm selling them is saving their time. So how much do they value their time? Do they need to do 100 hours of training, or do they just want to know everything they need to know within 2 to 3 hours? Within that training is a number of quotes from The Price of Tomorrow. So I haven't asked your permission for that, but I'm sure you're okay with it. Specifically, the one that really comes to mind is the changing of technology. New technology comes along and just completely disrupts the incumbents, and they don't even know it's happening. And I use that alongside the famous image of the street in New York from 1900 and 1913, I believe, where it flips from one car and loads of horses to one horse. And so I used that quote, and I actually read The Price of Tomorrow last year, as we record, for the first time. So I've been in Bitcoin since late 2000, after getting to Lebanon.
You mean 2020, right?
Sorry, 2020, correct?
Yeah.
Finally got around to reading The Price of Tomorrow, because I believe you wrote it in 2018. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's when I wrote it. I published it in 2019, end of 2019.
Wowzers. And yeah, I use a couple of the stats from it as well. Like, so the amount of debt we had to take on and money printing just to drive GDP growth, and that comes up in the training. And I'm like, this is 7-year-old, 8-year-old data now. Like, imagine where it's at now. So look, we'll touch on all of that. I feel like I'm ranting a little. I'm very excited to have you here. Talk us through your Bitcoin journey.
So the first time I'd heard of it or looked at it, and I didn't really look at it, was my technology team in, I think it was 2011, said, you got to take a look at this. This is important technology. And I was too busy building my business at that time, big technology play in North America. And so even though I massively respected them, I was too busy, too in the weeds to step out and take a look. And so I regret that choice. And then in 2017, I bought a little bit to just, I was curious about it again, but to say that I really understood it in 2017 would be a complete lie. It wasn't until I started writing my book, even though I would talk about this thesis for 10 years before, I didn't marry the two things in the Bitcoin because I didn't understand Bitcoin at a protocol level at that time. So I didn't put them together on what it really stood for and what it would look like. It wasn't until I was writing my book that and investigating what the existing system had to look like and how it would co-opt us and our attention, and we would make it stronger by it co-opting us as we divided each other and fought against each other from within it, and it would get stronger and co-opt us more and more as technology went the other way. It wasn't until then that I really started getting deep on Bitcoin. I say that, and that was a journey. And even though I thought I understood it in say 2019, I was very into it, but buying more and more. To say I really understood it at that time would also be a lie. It took me trying to disprove my hypothesis for a lot of hours to really understand Bitcoin. I'd say I really started to understand Bitcoin. So at that time, I had a 5% probability in my mind that Bitcoin would fail at some point in the future. And it was ironic. If I go back to that time, it was ironic that I had a 5% probability. So I knew for sure the existing system would fail. And I assigned risk, a higher weight of risk to the 5% probability than the existing system. And then through that, as I started to understand, why do I think the system that I'm in, that I know is unstable and has to be more and more unstable and more a control system, why do I believe it's safer than this 5% probability of failure? Because it isn't, right? Number one, because it has a 100% chance of failure.
So when you say 100%, you mean the fiat system
The
that we're
fiat system has a 100% chance of failure versus the 5%. So that was the first kind of what's going on in my own mind in this. And then as I tried to take every type of attack, I probably spent 15,000 hours trying to kill Bitcoin, and trying to kill Bitcoin from a standpoint that most people, even in Bitcoin, don't do today. I looked at it this: if we've always lived in a system that must steal from us, then it was always a control system. Our representation of what a free market looks like, we don't have an understanding. We hide behind these labels like capitalism or socialism or isms, but it's always looked the same. It's always looked like a zero-sum game where people won at somebody else's expense. And so as I investigated, so from that vantage point, I said, if that's true, then it's not those other people that is the risk. It's us that's the risk, because we've always been co-opted.
We are the risk in what way?
We are the risk of Bitcoin succeeding or failing, right? Not those people. And that gives you agency to understand it's no one else, it's you. And then as you understand what Bitcoin actually is, and how you play a role in the development of the protocol and moving on, you run a node, you invest your time and energy to spend Bitcoin, and you build a different world. You're part of the thing that's manifesting. And as you understand that, and you understand why, and I don't disregard the risk one iota. In fact, I have the risk so much higher than most people have. I just understand the opportunity as well. And I understand free markets, and I understand that choice, and I understand agency. And so as I did that, I moved more of my time in, and I understand that I am part of the thing. We are both the map and the territory, and I am part of the thing. There's hundreds of thousands, millions of Bitcoiners all over the world that is emerging. that changes this entire model. And the thing that why I'm so sure that this doesn't fail, the 5% probability has gone to almost a 0% probability of failure, is because to believe it would fail means I don't have agency, right?
Mm.
And I'm not discounting the risk, and we could talk about all of the risks and everything else, but every single failure event of Bitcoin comes down to one thing: I believe somebody else has more agency than me, so I'm not going to do it. So I'm going to give them more power. If you said, take what most people would say to you, governments are going to stop it, bad for the environment, quantum attack, every single not score debate, every single risk comes down to those people have more power than me.
Mm.
There isn't one that doesn't. And once you understand that, and you understand you get to choose what this looks like, you have the power. And that power, or that agency, that you create the world that you want to that you want to live in. Now you've moved your time and you've stopped empowering all of the imaginary villains in your life, and you're building a different protocol for the world. You're part of it.
Wow.
So it took but the way I said when you first said 100 hours, if you had said what I just said to me in 2018 or 2017 when I first bought Bitcoin, I would have thought the person speaking right now was crazy, right? Because I was so far away from my understanding of what this looks like, and so I recognize how crazy that sounds versus where people are stuck in their world today. I recognize how hard that is to believe from people who don't have agency, who are spending all of their time in the news or Twitter and talking about all those other people, Venezuela, the Lebanon that you mentioned, hyperinflation there. They're constantly giving their agency away, thinking it's somebody else, while they're participating in a system that they know is based on a fraud, and looking at somebody else to blame. And so I understand how hard that is. I understand the cognitive dissonance because I had to go through the same thing myself. But once you've left that system, once you've totally left that system and you're playing in a different world, just like you going to cheat code and understanding what that world looks like from a whole bunch of beautiful people, who are building a different infrastructure for the world, and they're not going to be stopped, right? You want to add your time to it. You want to move your time to it. And so that journey for each person takes time. And it took time for me. It takes time for everyone. Why I empathize with people going through the journey wherever they are, is because I saw it in myself. And a lot of Bitcoiners, then once they get to there, or to a spot here, they think they always knew it, and they didn't.
Yeah, I completely agree on that. And I mean, you've touched on a lot there, Jeff, that I want to come back to, but just on that final point, that journey, it's almost, I would say the Bitcoiner's journey is almost as entrenched as the very famous hero's journey. Like, there are very key points along this journey that people tend to fall into. So they come across it, they see it as a get rich quick scheme. They then tend to fall into other cryptos, shitcoins, as another way of getting rich quick. Then they come back to Bitcoin. They realize that, as you said, they're building this with their self-sovereignty. It's kind of opting out of this, of the fiat system. And then eventually you get far along enough the journey that the price of Bitcoin stops being the most important thing. It becomes one of the least interesting things. But you have to, and you can always tell where people are on that journey.
Yeah.
And this is a podcast that's aimed at financial advisors in the UK. And the vast majority are not even on step one. They are very much bought into the fiat world, the central bank world, that we, and the irony is, you talked about a new system and a new protocol and having agency in the free market. You've touched on all of those things there, but all of those existed to an extent until, was it 1913, 1912, 1913, until the advent of the Fed, essentially, in the US. So as humans, we have very, very short memories. We're really only 3 to 4 generations into the central bank system. We're only now
And you're further into it with the in England, the City of London and everything else, which really was the background to the Federal Reserve.
Okay, I hadn't realized that. So, I mean, I think because a lot of the literature on this is US based, but yeah, the central, I suppose, I mean, the British Empire essentially just became the City of London, so it's probably a few hundred years ahead.
And this money manipulation is, and today a bigger fight is happening. And if I don't want to talk about it, it's easier to find. So I want to say something careful here, right? It's easier to find they, right? The City of London, the banking elite that created all the wars and everything else, and then we've always lived in that zero-sum game. It's easy to think today that there's a fight between the old order banking cartel and the technocrats, with the technocrats being smart, the Peter Thiels, the world, Elon Musk, and everything else, the new control structure, and that fight is happening, and everybody taking their side. And that would be a version of reality that is actually true, right? That because if it's always been a control system, that control system would always aggregate power at the top, and everyone else would be pawns in that system. It would be easier to take a side within that. Why I prefer not to take a side in that, even though I understand both sides, I understand why people are fighting on both sides, is if instead you say that you have a system problem, that an inflationary system is incompatible with the free market, right? They can't coexist.
Why?
Because the free market, our ideas produce more value for us, and we use more value. We only use the things that provide us more value. So if the market was free, you would have more value forever because we only choose more value. So prices would fall, you would gain more value forever. There couldn't be a monopoly in that type of system. Now, you nod your head there, right? But that, and you nod your head there because you know it's true. It's a first principle, right? That has to be true because everything in our lives comes out of our minds. And we create value, we compete to create value. That competition is staggering, right? But we compete to provide value, and anything that doesn't provide us you more value fails in the free market because you choose the things that provide you more value. So how in that world, how possibly in that world, as ideas like silicon chips, we've turned sand into chips that power our computers, which sand, right, from our minds. How in that idea that a backbone of this technological advancement out of the free market that's providing productivity gains, staggering productivity gains, that we use the productivity gains, how couldn't prices be falling exponentially? And the only reason is because an inflationary based system can't allow deflation. And when I say inflationary based system, I mean a system where you loan money into existence. When you loan money into existence, if you allow deflation from that system collapses because there was no money in the first place.
Yeah.
So people are in this system that you loan money into an existence, measuring everything from that system that is incompatible with the free market. But why that's such a big deal in your brain, and it is probably right now even for you, even though you've probably heard me say this over and over again, is we think they're compatible. And we tell ourselves these easy to go to bed at night stories and say, yeah, I live in capitalism, those people live in socialism. It's both socialism. It's socialism for the rich, socialism for the poor. That's the fight. It's a zero-sum game. It is not the free market. There is no free market. There's never been a free market. And that, we don't want to believe we were lied to all our lives and we were part of the lie. It's really hard. It's really hard on your consciousness, on your brain, on everything else to be able to accept that. So it's easy to put up a wall and just believe it's not you, it's them. Right. And then you look for you look for the villain, you look for the other people, which that system needs you to look to, because you're all fighting within a system that's controlling you. But those two systems are incompatible. So now, if you started with those two systems are incompatible, and you're choosing which system you live in, if you're choosing, I'm trying to make more money in a zero-sum game, if you're winning, somebody else is losing at the same rate you're winning. And as they're losing at the same rate you're winning, you couldn't build walls high enough to keep them away from you.
What do you mean by that?
Means when all wealth is concentrated in very few hands, socialism rises, and or populism rises, and it's taken back by force. There is no winner long term in a zero-sum game.
I see. So yeah, and when you're saying this is a zero-sum game, so if I'm winning, let's say I'm Elon Musk, I've generated billions and billions, on track to become the first trillionaire. But for every dollar that I've made, someone has to have given that to me. And because of the system that we've created, where by loaning money into existence, if you then pay it back, if we pay back the debt, you essentially destroy the money, right? You lower the amount of money in the system. Hey team, a very quick pause. If you're a financial advisor, wealth manager, or accountant, chances are your clients have already asked you about Bitcoin. And if they haven't, they soon will. Which is why I've created the Bitcoin IFA webinars. The webinars are designed to give you all of the information you need to confidently talk about Bitcoin with your clients. They're on demand, so you can watch them at a time that's suitable for you. They count as 90-minute structured CPD, and you'll get priority access to the Bitcoin IFA community. Head over to thebitcoinifa.com to book your webinar today. It takes less than 60 seconds. Again, that's thebitcoinifa.com to book. Now, back to the episode.
So imagine what would happen in the free market with Elon Musk. His prices would continue to fall. He would still make money, because if he was providing value, prices would continue to fall. But he would make far less as prices fell radically fast. Right. And then it would open up all the competition for margin from everyone else to be able to compete with him. Well, he does one of those things while he tries to make things lower and lower. And you have this system printing money that essentially it extracts the prices falling, and it concentrates the wealth in the people who have the means of production. So prices don't fall because the prices, instead of being measured in a protocol like Bitcoin, that where you can see the prices falling, they're measured in a piece of paper. And that piece of paper just exponentially increases to stop the prices from falling. That exponential increases the pieces of paper when the person can't pay for the food or the groceries, and those prices should fall, and their cars and everything else. That is all getting sucked in to all of the technocrats, right? All of the people who have the AI, who are sitting at the top of the system. It's just all flowing. Why? The reason that he's going to be on track to be the first trillionaire is because of the system, is because of the manipulation of the system. And that has to come from somebody, because what would it look like in the free market? Prices would fall like crazy. Like like so staggering that you wouldn't believe it. You wouldn't need the money you think you need today because prices would keep falling and falling and falling and falling and falling.
Why in that system, let's play this out, why would the prices fall? So like why would the price of new Teslas fall, for example?
Why? So let's start here. Why do you use Riverside?
It provides me the skills and the value that I need to record. I can't do that alone, and it's $20 a month.
And 10 years ago, what would this system cost you?
Oh, thousands.
Yeah, maybe tens of thousands, right? To be able to, and 20 years before that, hundreds of thousands, and you couldn't touch the same amount of people. So you are a part. When I said you choose, because you have to give more value, otherwise you fail. You are the choice. So today, um, all of the let's say Tesla or BYD in China, these factories are dark factories being the production is made by robots. There's no people there's less and less people in them all the time, and that's why the prices continue to, or you get more value and you're constantly moving out. And how much does it cost once you've trained self-driving to continue self-driving? All of these things are doing the exact same thing that Riverside did for you, right? And it's a competition, global competition, to provide more value. All of the materials that go into those things are the same thing, right? So U.S. just invaded Venezuela, oil, raw materials, and everything else, right? Or remove Maduro, or whatever how you want to capture that. But underneath all of these materials is technology as well. And if you go to a mine today for resources, there's far less labor than there was 20 years ago in those mines. There's going to be far less labor tomorrow because it's the automation reduces the cost. And if you don't reduce the cost, then you fail in the free market. So all of the things that go into the things are also facing the same pricing pressure. The only reason prices aren't falling is the money has to be manipulated at the exact same rate. So you know this because when you read my book, you saw the increase in debt is the inverse of the rate that prices should be falling. Because from that system, you can't allow so you have exponential productivity that should mean exponential value to you. And you have exponential money printing that means exponential centralization of everything. Those people, right? Though, and then because of that chaos, we blame somebody else because we're measuring everything from a system that's based on you could just make up more pieces of paper forever, and it would be okay. I long ago said something that just a lot of people quoted in the Bitcoin space, but abundance and money creates scarcity everywhere. Scarcity and money creates abundance everywhere.
I did a LinkedIn post about that very recently. Again, I'm leaning on some of your work there, Jeff. But it's interesting that anywhere where we have had technological improvement, we have seen not necessarily a reduction in price, but there hasn't been the same acceleration. And actually, there has been some reductions in price, right? So if I think 20 years ago, the first flat screen TVs were thousands, if not, thousands and thousands of pounds. Now you can buy a pretty decent flat screen TV for £200. So the rate of technological improvement has far outstripped the way that we've printed money. But at the same time, the average house price in the UK has 10, 20x'd in that time. So where there's technological improvement and also abundance of resources, etc., we've seen this drop in price. I often think as well, as a child, I remember cans of soda pop being relatively expensive at the time, whereas now you wouldn't, they're they're nothing. They were 30p when I was a child, which was a lot of money, and now they're still less than a pound. So there has to have been so much technological improvement for that relative in price increase of that small thing versus the abundance
Let's
of
let's
income.
let's stay here for a second, Dan, because I'm watching your Bitcoin journey while we're doing this,
Mm.
right? And and hopefully you'll go deeper here. Every single thing you just mentioned, right? Houses, and TVs and everything else. Now, if you imagined that all of the things that you're measuring are going through the same manipulation, so because you're measuring them all in the piece of paper. And why some things are falling faster than others is because of Moore's law, and anything technology that's been digitized um, is 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 that technological wave that's exponential, right? And why your TV, like you can buy, I remember a flat screen TV, like the in US dollars, an 85-inch flat screen TV 5 years ago was still $7,000 to $10,000, and today it's 1,000, right? 85 inches, right? So they're going, and so, but that's Moore's law, and and now takes, but remember that price decrease is through the lens of the manipulation. So what would it have fallen without the manipulation is what you have to ask, because you don't know, because you're measuring everything through the piece of paper. Now, why a house has gone up in that time. And if you measure it in gold or Bitcoin, it's gone down. But if you measure it in a piece of paper, what is a house for the existing system? The house is a way to leverage debt into the existing system. And what is a house for somebody? What they're saying, what people are saying is, I can't store money in money, so I need to store it in an asset that protects my money, namely a house. Then I leverage that so the system can gain more debt. Banks take those and create more lower and lower need, because they need to drive more debt to be able to do it. And now, if I have enough leverage in a system that's going to debase my currency, then then it's really what it is a short on the financial system. And I can I create all sorts of leverage. That's what all these PE funds do, and stuff as well. And now I become systematically inside that system. And if I fail, the whole system goes down. Right. So just take every individual homeowner is taking that debt, and what they're doing is and so the house appears to be going up in value, but it's not. It's only going up in value relative to the piece of paper, exponentially increasing. So it's somewhat protecting their purchasing power. And then if you're a hedge fund, if you're a giant, systematically important BlackRock or someone else, what you're doing is you're doing that at scale, and you're part of that infrastructure that requires massive more manipulation. And remember in 2008, when in bailing out the system, what they essentially did is said, if you get too big and you're systematically important in this system, we will for sure bail you out, because otherwise the system fails. So now every other marginal player raced to get bigger inside that system, because it's all coordinated. And if they fail the whole system, it's just based on a fraud. It's not a free market. It's based on, every time people are watching for the Fed, like you have these ceremonies where people are waiting for the news of what 13 people are going to say, right? And when they talk about liquidity, adding liquidity, you're talking about manipulation of money, and everybody's waiting to manipulate more money. It's so staggering. It's so crazy. And then you have financial advisors like you're talking to, parroting other people's words about when you're going to manipulate more money to make a bet within that system of manipulation.
You mentioned people there using their houses to protect their purchasing power, which is, I mean, it's a bit of a fallacy, right? Because all of the other houses are going up relative to yours. So you may invest, you get a 10x return over 20 years, but then you come to sell it and everything else has gone up just as much.
Hey team, just a quick pause to say a huge thank you. You've given us your most precious assets, your time and your attention. And honestly, it means the world to us. If you've enjoyed this episode or you take value from these conversations, it would really mean a lot if you could like, comment, or subscribe. Those things really help the algorithm and they help the channel to grow. And if there's someone in your life who would take value from this, maybe a fellow advisor or someone just curious about Bitcoin, please send it their way. You never know what it might spark. Okay, back to the studio.
Yeah, your groceries have gone up. Essentially your purchasing power has gone down, and that's because of inflation or because of the manipulation of money. Now, in that system, then as you live on your street and you have a house and no one else can get a house, and they can't protect their purchasing power, what did they do? Right? Do they turn to a government that created the problem to blame you because you have the wealth, um, because you tried to protect your purchasing power? And then what do those people do? Those people demand more from the government. The government says, yes, because there's more of you people than those are people that are owning houses. So we're going to give you something that came from nothing, that's just making up more money, that makes your house go up more, it makes the problem worse, right? And by stealing money, by just pieces of paper, pricing the world, and makes the problem worse. So what do those people do? They get angrier. What does the government do? They tax your house more because you can't move your house, right? You get angrier. You both get angry, and you believe it's somebody else. And each time you're inside that system, getting angrier and angrier and angrier, looking at somebody else without the root cause of the entire system underlying the system. So why, of course, it looks like that is try to name a problem you could solve in the world, whatever side you're on, by manipulating more money.
I mean, if you try and redistribute money from anywhere to anywhere, someone has to lose and win in that situation.
It's a zero-sum game. But the free market is actually an infinite game. We compete it literally is an infinite game because the everything that comes into existence out of our mind. And so we that and we compete with people to provide value. I'm not saying it's easy. You have to compete, but the output of providing more value and everyone competing to provide more value means the only way you could extract more value than somebody else is by service to them, their choice. And then somebody will compete with you because of the margin that you make, and they will drive that price down further and drive that abundance. So from that infinite game, everybody wins. But it's so hard to see because why it's so hard to see is we've never lived in that paradigm. So we have all these beliefs that are inside the other system, trying to understand what this new system is imposing, what this new protocol is imposing. And I think it's probably worth it's probably worth for your advisors or the people you're talking to say this. If you saw Bitcoin as a technology, let's say you saw it as let's use it was a I'm going to go through a couple different frames of reference. If you're measuring everything from a fiat instrument that you know is being manipulated, and if you don't know that, you should know that, right? Then from that manipulation, what could be real over time? So you're just playing inside that manipulation, and it would get more and more confusing. So now but if you're measuring from this other thing, and you first thought, okay, Bitcoin is a get rich scheme, right? Or technology, or just a toy, then that would be and even if you wanted to play in it, you would be really easily attracted to all the other get rich schemes, all the altcoins and everything else. And it might be normal if everything felt broken, and let's say you didn't have houses, you didn't have wealth, and you were at the lower end of the social income or ladder, it would be easy to believe in the get rich schemes because everything else was broken. So you'd be kind of a pawn to be able to easily exploited into all of this nonsense. Now let's use a different version of a potential reality. You thought Bitcoin was a technology. Well, technologies are winner take most until a new technology comes along and replaces that technology. And and from that version, you would easily look at other coins. You would say, okay, Bitcoin's old tech. It can't work. Now take another framework. Bitcoin was an asset underneath broken money. So it was like a house, but couldn't be taken, a digital house, digital real estate, but it couldn't be taken. Then from that framework, you would still be inside this broken money system, and you'd be using Bitcoin as a store of value, but you wouldn't see it as money, as a circular economy. You wouldn't see it as everything else, but you would hold it and you'd hoard it. And from that system, if you held it and hoarded it, and you said the natural state of the free market is deflation, prices should fall, and from this system, you haven't changed your system lens at all. You're just inside the other system using Bitcoin as an asset. And what that means is that has to centralize because you're still pricing everything in the fiat piece of paper. And likely from that version of your reality, you would take more risk in Bitcoin than you should. You would trust somebody else to hold your Bitcoin. You would trust an ETF, and it would centralize more, and it was centralized more. So now let's take a different version of Bitcoin and say it's a protocol. It's a protocol like the internet. And open protocols come in layers, and they add more and more functionality in layers, and they're winner take all. Protocols are not technologies. So technology winner take most, protocols winner take all. There's only one internet. If you have a VPN connection in North Korea, you get the same internet as you do here, right? So they're winner take all, and you can access everything. So now if you saw it as a protocol that was emerging and privacy was coming on top of it, and you had it was money, and it was a circular economy and everything else, then you would see the explosion, and it wouldn't matter to you. You would see all of what's happening, and it would be repricing the world. And you would see the abundance being gained of all of these things, and all of the entrepreneurs racing to build to the new, essentially, internet bounded by energy. And you'd have an internet over here, AI, that's trying to consolidate everything. And you'd have a new internet that was decentralized and secure, bounded by energy, being built in parallel. And so that new internet, or that protocol that I see Bitcoin emerging into, and what as you start to move more of your time and you see what's happening there, it's abundant. It's repricing the world, everything and everyone over a long horizon. And you can provide value on top of it by moving your time over to it. But I understand why, if you had a different view of Bitcoin, like, so if you first time hearing Bitcoin, you probably think it's a scam. I'm pricing the world from pieces of paper. And you don't recognize in you that you're pricing the world from something that makes no sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Completely agree.
So let me just say one more thing. And I'm going to, if I'm right on this, there's going to be a lot of people trying to say, no way, this can't be true, it's not true, and everything else. But if I'm right, it would have to look like this. It would have to look like all of your cognitive dissonance, all of the nonsense, all of the stuff that your beliefs moving, just like mine had to move, right? And all the things that I recognized I was living in a lie my entire life, I'd have to let go to move to the system. So when we think it's somebody else, the entire thing would have to look like this, because this is imposing. Every 10 minutes there's a new block. It doesn't care what I'm saying right now. It's imposing an energy-backed system, open, decentralized, secure, protocol bounded by energy. Every 10 minutes there's a new block. It doesn't care. And on top of that, there's an entire ecosystem, protocol layers coming on top, that entrepreneurs are building onto this protocol to provide value to the world. And as the world consolidates and they get destroyed in their pieces of paper, and wars emerge, and this person, and they give that more power, eventually those people start to say, why am I doing this in this when I can move my time into something that's honest?
When do you think that might happen? So, and actually, there's two questions there, which is, I like you. I believe that's going to happen. That's why I'm in Bitcoin. It is, we are at the advent of a new world, which will be of benefit to humanity, right? But I think we're right at the beginning. So when do you think that happens? And sadly, what steps do you think we need? Will the world go through to get there? Because personally, I don't see central bankers, technocrats. I don't see any of those guys relinquishing that power they have as a consequence of holding a lot of that paper money.
Yeah, so it's such a fascinating question, and what I mean by the fascinating question is it shows me, and you know a lot about Bitcoin, and it shows me how much further you need to go too, because it's not a now it happens. It happens for every individual, and I'm already living in it. So it fascinates me because what we're really asking is, what inside that question is, when does everybody do it when I'm not doing it? Right?
Yeah.
That's what's inside that question, right? When does
Yeah.
everybody else do it when I'm not doing it myself? And most Bitcoiners today are doing the exact same thing, thinking it's going to change when they're still pricing Bitcoin in a piece of paper. And so, but once you've moved your time and energy and you're actually living in a circular economy, no, I can't buy Bitcoin. I can't spend on Bitcoin on everything, but I try to. If somebody is, I will pay more, even though most people charge less in Bitcoin than because there's no fiat rails. There's no 2.5% extraction for fiat dollars of credit card processing. But I would pay more in Bitcoin to advance the world that I want to live in. And I look to do this. I spend in it every day. But I also, because we have a venture capital company that's investing in these companies, I'm watching the explosion of these companies solving the problems that people are worried about while they're inside those problems, making those problems worse. So when you ask, you could create a ton of viral views on your on this post if you were to say, okay, the financial system's going to collapse tomorrow, and this is why, right? And this is what's going to happen, and you see everybody listening to that over and over, just garbage. Which snowflake causes the avalanche, right? And it's just complete nonsense. Well, their time is being captured inside that system that they believe it's somebody else. So, and that's why they listen to it. It's so compelling. You're wanting to find somebody to be able to tell you what you believe on why that's the person. That's the problem. But it's you. And you can move your time. The more time you move to the system, the more your life looks abundant. The more it is abundant. It's a mere reflection of your time. And that's so. So how do you start? How do you start by doing how you started? Go to a conference, go to Cheat Code, go to any conference, and start to see what's happening with people in this. Spend more time with those people, and you just start to emerge a different version of reality will emerge from you, because you'll start to see it, and that it'll connect to other things, and you'll want to do more business in it. And because 99.9% of people are still stuck into the other system, if you're providing value to a system that is an off-ramp to a system that has to consolidate, you're likely to do really well by providing value to a whole bunch of people who don't yet see this system change. But there is no. That's why. So you know that William Gibson quote: "Future's already here. It's just not evenly distributed." Right. That's what it looks like right now. It's already here. You could live like this. Well, it'd take some time to understand what's going on, but you could live like this tomorrow. You could, and it would your life would gain everything is following the free market, because all prices are falling relative to Bitcoin, and they will forever as long as it stays decentralized and secure. You, every single person on Earth could move their time into this to ensure that it stays decentralized and secure by running a node, by building on top of it, by building privacy tools, and all of those tools and all of those different layers of protocols coming on top of this also provide massive value to the entrepreneurs that are doing it, because they're solving problems to make Bitcoin easier to use, making Bitcoin, and just like all of the entrepreneurs building on top of the internet, created tons of value for a whole bunch of people who didn't know what the internet was going to look like. Right? That's where we live today, and every single person could go to, like, this minute, instead of spending the time. I try to do this. Honestly, look at your life and capture it in the amount of time. Measure your time and ask yourself, it's going to hurt for a lot of people. How much time are they giving away in social media, Instagram, TikTok, inside this system? And is it valuable to their life? Are they winning? Right? If they measure and then why don't you just remove some of that time and put it into this? If you don't want to remove it all at first, just remove a fraction, remove 10% of it, and learn this. And what you'll do is, as you learn this, you'll want to move more of your time.
Completely agree. I couldn't agree more, Jeff. I mean, I was fortunate in that I was locked down in Lebanon in a hotel room for 23 hours a day for 2 months when I first started my Bitcoin journey. So I was able to go from 0 to 100 hours on Bitcoin in probably a week. I mean, maybe a fortnight. I think in those 2 months I watched the Sailor series with Robert. I've forgotten his surname off the top of my head, but that's the one, yeah. And where he runs through the whole history of energy, 9-part series, and I was able to watch that twice in my first 2 months, and then that's accelerated until I think I mentioned. I think we were talking about this offline. I went to Cheat Code last April, and then it just accelerated from there, and it's accelerating again. There's huge plans for this year. So I think you're absolutely correct. Any amount of time that people put into researching Bitcoin will tend to compound as they get more and more interested in it. Financial advisors listening to this, I would emphasize to reach out to the Bitcoin IFA for training and to get your first few hours in it. So I completely agree that on an individual sovereign level, there's nothing preventing everyone moving into this. I mean, I was absolutely shocked that I think I met a chap in his 70s, possibly early 80s at Cheat Code last year, who had completely moved his life to a Bitcoin standard. So he'd sold everything, bought Bitcoin, was doing #van life, had a debit card that was paying for everything, did the instantaneous transaction from Bitcoin to Fiat. So it is physically possible.
I see this all the time. This is my life. Like, I see it. It's all my friends. So they're not all my. I saw friends in Fiat land and everything else. But increasingly, I see this all the time. It's not abnormal. It just looks abnormal to people who think it is. It's just early. It's Jeff Bezos creating Amazon, and bookstores laughing at him. And everyone at that time when they were when he was doing that, thinking this internet thing's a joke, it's not going to work, it's not or I'm never going to buy a book online, and then they shop at Amazon every day. We don't see the change in us, and we don't see it, and we forget how fast it changed. And we once said one thing, and then we change our minds and we do another thing. So the free market looks like. The free market is an arbiter of value. And so if you're creating more value for people who are getting stuck inside that other system, you can guarantee, don't bet against human productivity. Don't bet against the free market. And so when you have a protocol that ensures that, when you have an energy-backed protocol, open, decentralized, secure protocol bounded by energy that enforces that, it imposes the first free market we've ever seen. You can disregard what I just said. You can choose to ignore it. But your choosing to ignore it will only hurt you or anybody you're advising.
Totally agree. I literally posted on LinkedIn this morning a video talking about how people laugh at new technologies. So the telephone was invented so that telephone operators could speak to each other. So they didn't. Well, no, sorry. So the Morse code people could speak to each other, and no one could see the next extension from that of the telephone. I mean, the internet examples, there's lots of them. I'm trying to think, there was another one in this video, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. But we are just very, very early to a new technology. I talk about that in my training, that you probably want, even if you don't, like, if people don't believe any of this conversation, Jeff, right? And obviously I'm in, you're definitely in. But to a lot of financial advisors, they struggle to see beyond the fiat world that they're in. They've typically all done very well from the money printer. Their clients have done very well from the money printer. It's very difficult to disconnect from that. But I try and use the examples of new technology always disrupts the incumbent, always. And if you've got someone stood in front of you telling you in 1900, move 1 to 2% of your portfolio into the car, just hedge. And I'm doing, that's essentially where I'm at with financial advisors. It's just to say that this is new technology. It's essentially
I would start using protocol different than technology, because technology is replaced with new technology. Protocols are winner take all, and protocols come in layers. So it'll help you differentiate, because as a technology, people could see it as an asset only. As a protocol, it becomes everything. Right. It comes in, protocols come in layers. And why? So if you use Bitcoin and you say, I think many probably people still believe in the old, what it looked like, and it can't scale. That's a design characteristic of a protocol that builds decentralization and security into it, so it can't scale on the first layer. But then a layer gets built on top of it, like Lightning, Liquid, Arc, Spark, a whole bunch of different, and that's a new protocol layer. That's a move of value, a move of information at lightning fast speed. So now it scales like crazy. there's a new layer on top of that integrated into it, Fediment, Cashew, that provides privacy. So in the UK right now, privacy is a really important. You couldn't, and so people think Bitcoin there needs to be a different coin because Bitcoin's not private. Privacy comes in layers and extends the capability of the decentralization and security into privacy without needing another coin. That's already existing. So you could have complete privacy in your communications and money right now on Fedi, if you down FEDI on the App Store. And you can create for your family, you should, to protect their own privacy. It's one of the only things that's outside of a centrally controlled system. You should do it yourself, Dan, but other people should do. And join a federation or launch your own federation. And no one besides the person you're talking to can see your communications. If you want to send money privately, you can send money privately, and it's impossible to track. And so these legacy items that people looked at Bitcoin to try to sell their coin, that Bitcoin couldn't scale or it wasn't private, or these are legacy things to sell somebody else's coin. And Bitcoin's scaling in layers, and most people don't even realize that protocol already exists in layers. That is Nostr, for example. You don't have to be on Twitter anymore. Nostr, you can actually get paid and be in something that can't get shut down. And it's built on top of Bitcoin. So it's a social graph, a web of trust on top of Bitcoin.
Wow. Jeff, there's still so many questions that I want to ask you. I'm wary of time and I don't want to keep you for too long. We'll have to do a part 2. There's still lots that I want to ask, but for now, we always ask guests the same question, which is, what's one positive thing that Bitcoin has brought to your life outside of number go up?
The friends you meet along the way. It really is. I ask myself that. So I always caveat Bitcoin with, if it stays decentralized and secure, it changes everything and everything we ever knew about money and the world. It literally wrecks all models. And that if always came down to if enough people take this seriously. And then as I was doing this, I met all of those people. And that chaotic, crazy, different people doing different, beautiful people, all different ideas and everything else, competing for this, but all under on something that is committed to make the world a totally different version, abundance, truth, hope, abundance for everyone. Then I asked a quite different question: what if it failed? Like, what if everything that I did and that and in the end it all failed? Would I do it again? And when I think about all of the people and all of what's happening and everything else, I cannot believe I get to do it. Of course I would do it again. I would do it again. If it all went to zero tomorrow, I would do it again, because of the people you meet along the way. And it won't, and by the way, it's not going to fail because of that. Right? Some of these people, I might be a public figure, and I might be but there's thousands of friends, more than that completely private and driving this forward in a way that people can't even see what's happening.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Jeff.